Welcome back for day 3 of making a mobile app in 5 days. So hopefully you guys saw the link I sent earlier on. It's in the comments, so if you have lost your code, you can use that link, and so that's in the comments section. You click on the link and then make sure you press the fork button here. And what fork does, it basically creates a copy of that code base, so that you've got your own copy and you're working on that and you're not making any changes to someone else's. Because if I give you this exact link that I'm on, if I just give you this and you start making changes, then your changes are going to be applied onto mine as well. We don't want that to happen, so yeah, just make sure you press the fork button, and I'll do the same tomorrow as well. I'll send the link to the updated code that we get to by the end of today. Right, so let's see where we got to yesterday. So if you open so by the way, if you ever experience, like, let's say you're saving the code and the preview app is not opening or changing, just start again by going onto Playground and click on the QR code button here and scan it. So yeah, just scan the code again if something's not working. So this is where we were yesterday. We had the loading text, and the homework was to try and center it. And so once your phone it's got your location, and then it pulls the API to get the weather for that location, then that loading screen disappears and you see the weather information. Right. So I'm going to show you now how to center everything, in case you haven't already. So it's quite simple actually. Let's go ahead and do it. So what I did, first of all, was I did a lot of Googling to find out how to center so what did I write? I think I wrote vertically align the stack layout. So I was doing a lot of Googling and like searching on the internet and Stack Overflow of how to vertically align labels, or the stack layout or the grid layout. And then I thought, so none of that led to anything. And then I thought, like what basically what we're doing is we're just centering the loading spinner, and the loading spinner is quite a common feature of apps. And so when I just typed in vertically align loading spinner NativeScript, so it does matter a lot about what you search in Google, getting the right keywords. But it's, even for me, sometimes it takes a few tries before I get the right keyword combination within Google to find what I'm looking at. And then you just have to keep remembering to try different things. So like, instead of searching for how to vertically align a label, maybe you change the wording to vertically center label, or you just forget about what you've got on the page and you go back to the basics and think about what you're actually trying to do, and that is vertically aligning the loading spinner. So let's see if I can find an answer. So let's do vertically center note. Oh, here it is. Right. So this was what I used, I think. So vertically center loading spinner NativeScript. So let's see if this blog has the answer. All right. So, and then when you're clicking through links in Google, If your problem is to do with layout, CSS, anything to do with style, whenever you so you can just quickly click onto every link on Google within the first page, and just don't read the text, just scroll straight to the images and just get an idea if that's what you're trying to do. So when I first saw this, I saw, okay, that's nice. The spinner is centered, the whole page is centered. And then I saw this image and I thought, all right, so maybe they started off like that, and then slowly they got to more of a centered approach. So then I started reading, looking at the code to see if I could see anything, like where they are using, how they're doing it. And there's actually nothing on this blog that shows how they're actually centering the spinner, because that's not actually what they're telling us. That's not the purpose of this article. The purpose of this article is just to tell the reader how to show an activity indicator, and they just happen to be centering it at the same time, but they don't tell us how to do that. But normally within any blog or article to do with coding, they usually post a link to their code, and that's normally at the bottom. So if you scroll, so just to clarify, looking at these images, we know that they've got a centered loading spinner, and so their code must have something. So we can click here, so the full source code. Source code is, it just means the code. So if you click on the link, and so don't worry about following along or clicking on these links or going to this article right now. I'm just showing you how I found the answer to centering the loading spinner and other things. Right, so this is their code. Straight away you can see, well, there's nothing here basically. So you need to look in the Explorer, and don't forget that article was to do with the login form. So have a look to see if you can see any login files or folders, and then here's a login folder. Okay, and let's go to the HTML. So this is NativeScript Angular. So something else you'll find when you are Googling NativeScript is that there's actually a few different flavors of NativeScript, and that's Angular, React, or plain JavaScript, or Vue. And in what we are using is Vue.js, but you'll see articles code that's in all the other flavors as well. The HTML is usually the same, and the CSS is the same. You can see that here, but the actual JavaScript file, that's usually different. It's got a different layout. So anyways, if we go back to the HTML, and then looking at this, I saw that they had a flexbox layout over here, and then I thought, all right, well, flexible, flexbox usually it means, flex is a term used in CSS as well as HTML, and it allows you and gives you loads of options for laying out things across a grid, or centering stuff in the middle or at the beginning or the end. And so what I did was so I just happened to know that flexbox layout must be the reason how they're centering it. So if we just Google flexbox layout NativeScript, we can see what options it gives us. You can click any link. So this one. So in the documentation, again, what I normally do is I just look at the images whenever it's something to do with style, to try and find something that I want to do. So none of these. I want something that's to do with centering. Okay, so that that the word center there. So there must be something to center it. And then if you have a look here, it's got align items. So align items is an attribute. So remember yesterday we talked about props. So in NativeScript, all of their elements contain props, and that's also like attribute is the same thing. So they have a prop or attribute called align items, and that's specifically on the flexbox layout. And the values within here are as follows, and they have something here called center, which is exactly what we want, or so we think we want. So let's try this. So we want align items as the prop and center as the value. Let's just copy this one. Well, instead of copying it, let's just type it. It's not long. Right. So now instead of like, let's just center the whole page, because it'll be nice if we have the actual, like, do you see how this, all of the weather data is a bit, it starts from the top and there is nothing underneath, and this is not going to be a scrolling page, so let's just center everything. So if you start typing in flex, oh, missing the chevron, so add the chevron and then start typing in flex, and you'll see flexbox layout comes up. Press enter, and now we want the prop that we found, or the attribute, which was align items, and that we want to be center. Close that with that chevron. So why have I put it here? Because I want the whole grid to be centered. So I want to wrap this whole grid element, which starts from there, ends here. I want to wrap that with the flexbox layout. And so to do that, we have to put the opening tag above it and the closing tag below it. So we've got one tag here, and then so just at the, now to make this look better, so highlight all of the grid layout, make sure it's, so it ends just above page. There's a few grid layouts in here, so make sure you end at the right place. So we start near the top on line 5 and we end on line 29. And so highlight everything just as I've done. So you can highlight it starting from the bottom if you want. You scroll up all the way here and then press the tab key so that it's aligned and looks nice, and then go to the last to the closing grid layout, press enter, and then start with the left chevron, and then it's automatically highlighted flexbox layout, but we want the one with the /, and it's formatted it nicely. And now press save and let's see what happens. Brilliant, it's centered. Everything's centered. Let's see what and the weather is centered as well. But there's something wrong here, because I'm sure well, I can see now, you see the town was actually at the top when we first started coding. And if you look here, or the city, should I say. So the city label is here on line 11. And that is above the day and time. The day and time here, Wednesday afternoon's right near the top, whereas the city is near the bottom, so that doesn't make sense. There's something going wrong, and let's first of all we added this vertical alignment center yesterday, which was just when we were trying to center the label. We don't need that. That was some leftover code, so delete that. Could it be because of that? Let's see. Let's save it. No, the city's still at the bottom. So what I want to do anyway, before we fix that issue, or we might fix it as a side effect of what we do now, is we've got the loading elements, and that is the activity indicator and the loading label. So these two elements, they're just bundled in with the main layout, like where it says the city, the day and time, the summary, etc. I think it would be a lot cleaner if we separate the loading screen, or the loading section, with the actual main section. So to do that, we can add another stack layout. And so, by the way, if you don't know what any of these mean, like let's say you want to know, why have we used the stack layout here? Why is there a grid layout? Why is there a flexbox and a page? You can literally just copy it, put in Google, paste, and then type in NativeScript and Vue, because that's the flavor of NativeScript we are using. So then find this one, so stack layout, NativeScript Vue. This is in Russian for some reason. We can change this part of the URL to be EN for English. And then you can just read this and you'll see what stack layout is. And summary is, it's a layout container that lets you stack the child elements vertically or horizontally. So in our case, as you can see, we've got the weather summary, then you've got the day and time, you've got the image, you've then got the city, and then you've got another block which is a different layout, but everything's stacked vertically, and that's exactly what it says here, like why you're using a stack layout. So let's go back and let's stay within the grid, and let's create a new stack layout where we're going to keep our loading section. And let's close that element or the tag, enter, and now take all of that out, so the activity indicator and the loading label. So if you can cut that as follows, cut and paste, press save just to make sure everything's still working. Yep. Okay, so that's still working, and as you can see, as a side effect of separating our code and making it cleaner, we've actually solved some of our issues. So the city is now at the top and everything looks perfectly centered within the app. So this is probably the best bit of advice I'm going to give you throughout this course about coding in particular, and that is, try your best to separate code out as much as possible. So just so that first of all, it's going to look cleaner. It's going to be more readable, because now at least we can see we've got one section here, and now we've got one section here. And something else you can do is, so if you create a new line and tab over just to above stack layout and do 2 forward slashes, and no, is that the right thing? Sorry. So yeah, if you go back to line 7, tab, so you're in line with stack layout, and then I want you to write what this section is. So in your own words, just write a very, in about 5 to 6 words, not too long, what this section is doing. Right, so I'm going to say this is the loading section which appears before we have the location and weather. And once you've typed that, while you're still on that line, I want you to do a command / and that should automatically format that like that. And that's called a comment, an inline comment, which doesn't get processed to anything. It's there purely for you when you're coming back to the code. So on Mac, you press command / and that toggles between commenting it, and it should turn green. On Windows, it might be control and /. Let's see if not, then just you can manually type in the chevron, exclamation mark, and the dashes and make it look like that. Right, so Bube's got a question. Where did you align from grid layout? Sorry, so I'm not sure I fully understand what you mean, but what I'll do is, let me put in, so you've got grid layout on line 5, Abube, and then Flexbox layout is above on line 4. Okay, and then so the main grid layout, which starts at line 5, ends on line 35, and then you've got the Flexbox layout after that. And yeah, if you've still got issues, just just leave another comment explaining what exactly the problem is, and if you want, I can send you an updated link which will just allow you to jump to exactly where we are right now. So let me know if you need that. Right, so we've added a comment here, and now let's do the same for this stack layout. And this is going to be called the main part of the app, which shows the weather. Great, Abube's worked it out. All right, yeah. So the purpose of separating out the stack layouts was purely for cleaner code and it's more readable. And after I finish writing this comment, I'll explain why readable is important. So the main part of the app, which shows the weather information. Okay. Right. So now, let's say you come back to this after a week of not looking at it. You're going to immediately know when you look at this piece of code. You can see these comments, and now you know what this whole stack layout is doing, instead of reading the code and trying to figure it out. And the same thing here. My advice is, the more comments you add, the better. But again, not to the extreme where you're writing a comment for every line. So do it for different sections. Wherever either for different sections, or do it for different sections, and also do it for any line of code or block of code that was a bit confusing for you when you were writing it, and just explain what it's doing, because it might be confusing to you again when you come back to it. Right, so now we've got two sections, the loading section and the main part of the app. Great, and just double check everything looks good. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So what's next? So what we can do now is so depending on the temperature, so right now it's 16 degrees Celsius. Remember yesterday we changed it to Celsius. and that was down here where we've got the get my weather method. We changed the units from, it was imperial before, which was Fahrenheit. So if you want to keep it on Fahrenheit, just change the units to imperial. If you want Celsius, change the units to metric. I'll stick with metric for now. And so what we want to do is, depending on the temperature, we want to change the background color. So if it's cold, we can go for a blue. If it's around, average temperature, maybe a yellowy orange. And then if it's really hot, then we can go for a red. Yeah, PT, I'll just send the link now. Okay, what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm just forking it to make sure it's a different URL. Okay, copy that, close. Alright, I've sent you the URL now, and yeah, you can fork it just to make sure it is your own. And let's close these Chrome tabs while you're doing that. So what we're going to do is, if the weather is cold, we're going to have a blue background. If it's medium, orange or yellow. If it's hot, we'll have red. So the first thing we want to do is, so what's an average temperature? So first we need to define the thresholds, right? So at what temperature what is our definition of cold, medium or hot? So let's see, let's find an average temperature first of all, average, and we'll do everything in Celsius, and then if you want to do it in Fahrenheit, then just change the word Celsius to Fahrenheit, and you can change the values that we write later on. So what we want to find is basically what the general population thinks of as the average temperature. Okay, so say what temperature is cold. Alright, this is quite good. So this website is saying, don't worry if this isn't accurate, we'll go with what this is saying. So basically this is saying if it's between 8 and 15, it's cold. So what we'll do is, if the temperature is less than 15, we're going to say it's cold. And then if the temperature is between 15 and 25, if it's between 15 and 25, we'll go for a yellowy orange. And if it's over 25, we'll go for a red. Okay. So where do we write that code? Okay. So first of all, where are we getting the temperature? Our temperature. So this is the data, and this is the current temperature field, and then this is the created method, which means when the app is loaded, run the following code. So we're calling this .getMyWeather. So whenever you've got whenever you've got brackets, an open bracket and a closing bracket, that basically means it's calling a function or a method. So once the app has been created or loaded on your phone, it's calling getMyWeather. So let's find the getMyWeather method, which should be here. Right, it's getting the location. Once it's got the location, it's calling the API. once it's got the API, it's then calling pass response. And here we are, current temperature. So, right. So weather.temp is the actual value that comes back from the API. So that could be, in our case, so what our app shows my app shows 16, but it might actually be something like 15.9343322210001, and we don't want to display that. We want to round it up, and that's why we've got this piece of code, which basically is rounding up the value within the brackets. All right. So this is what we want to use, the weather.temp. And so before we set the current temperature, we want to get that value, and then we want to tell the app what background to do, to set. So let's add some space. Okay, so we'll create a new variable. We'll start off with a var. So var temperature equals weather.temp. Alright, so what we've done here is we've declared a variable called temperature, and temperature is equal to weather.temp. So it's basically like doing a shortcut. So now instead of us typing in weather.temp, because we've just declared a variable called temperature and setting that to weather.temp, now we can just use this shortcut here. So if we go here, we can change this weather.temp and just put in temperature. Okay. So now we've got the temperature here, and then we want another variable which is going to be what the background color is, or like what the temperature is in terms of cold, average, or hot. So let's do var, what shall we call this? I don't know, average temperature or average temp. Okay, and then let's set that to just a piece of quotes, because we don't know what it is right now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use an if condition. So if temperature, so if temperature is below 15, and this is how you write an if condition. So if temperature is below 15, then the average temp will be cold. Okay, so that's fine. And then, so what this is doing is, if this condition becomes true, then the code within the within these curly brackets gets run. If it's not true, so for example, if it's 15.1, then all of this code is not going to get run. So let's put an else now. So if the temperature is below 15, do that. Else, if, and then you put another condition. So if temperature is greater than or equals to 15, and so you put two and symbols to which means an and. So if the temperature is greater than or equal to 15 and the temperature is less than or equal to 25, then the average temperature is, we're just going to say medium. All right. And then else, if the temperature is greater than 25, then the average temp is hot. Cool. Now, how do we know if that even works? So right now we've got the code. I think we're quite confident this code is going to work. But all this is doing is it's just updating this variable called average temp. It's not actually doing anything to the UI. It's not changing the background color. Before we get on to updating the UI, let's make sure this code is working. And to do that is you can use a console log to log out, to log anything within this JavaScript code. So what we want to log is the average temp to see if it's working, basically. So if you write that console.log average temp, and before you press save, we want to open the device logs. Okay. So anything you console log here should show up in the device logs. And now, again, before you press save, let's just clear the logs. So we're starting from clean, and then press save. And let's see if that worked. So the app's still loading. Right. So yeah, you can see that here. So we're on 16 degrees. And you can see that medium has been logged, which means this piece of the code must have run. And that sounds right, because 16 is greater than 15 but less than 25. Great. So that code's working. We can go ahead and delete this console log. Okay. And right, so now that's working. Now we want to change the background color, and let's find out how to do that. So let me try something here. Wait a minute. So let's go down to the style, and that should have some colors, I think. No. Right, let's see. So let's say change background color NativeScript Vue. And yeah, let's go on the first link. Scroll to the answer. Let's see if you can see a background color. Right. I think I see something. No. Not here. But let's find another one. So there's going to be there's at least 10 different ways to change the background color of a page. You can do it via CSS, which is in the style tag, or you can add a prop or an attribute to an element, or you can do it directly in JavaScript. What I want to do, or what I hope to do, is to have a prop. So let's just go, and if you go here to the page, type in background color, and then type yellow to see if that does anything, and then press save. Yeah, perfect. So you might be wondering, how did I know to put background color there? Well, I remember seeing something somewhere, not while looking for it, just on some other page, and so yeah, I thought let's just try it instead of wasting a lot of time googling around. So that works, and now we want to make this different. Okay, so now we want to change this depending on the average temperature. So now we need to define some colors, and what we're going to do is we're going to make this a data, we're going to bind the background color, so we're adding a colon so that it's data binding, so that it looks within the script for the for whatever value we put in here to get the color. Okay, so let's create, let's say, temp color. Alright, so now we need to create this somewhere here, and let's do it here. So within our data, we're going to, just after current temperature, add a comma where the speech marks end. Press enter, paste in the temp color, and let's start off as grey. No, let's start off as black, and then press save. Let's see if that works. Yep, that looks like it's working. So now all we have to do is change the temp color to the color that we want, and everything will be working. So let's go back down to where we had our code, temperature. All right, and you know what? We don't actually need to set the average temp like to a cold, medium, or hot. We can just change the background color straight away. So let's delete this variable, average temp, and delete this line of code. And instead we want to do this dot, because we just defined a new data field, and that was called temp color. And let's do blue. Then copy this line and paste it over the other two average temps to get rid of those. So we wanted blue, and let's go for an orange, and then a red, and let's press save. And now let's see. So it's starting off as black, and now it's finding your location, and then it's pulling in the data from the weather API, and then hopefully it should be right. That is perfect. So the temperature is 16, which means the code has come to this block, not the other two, but this one, because this condition matched. The temperature is greater than or equal to 15 and less than or equal to 25. So that's good, but how do we know if it's going to work when the temperature is over 25 or below 15 without asking someone to change the weather? So what we can do is we can manually override the temperature to test that. So because we've got temperature set here, what we can do is, so when you're declaring a variable for the first time, you put in a var. But then if you want to use it later on in the code, you don't need to put the var there. You just put the variable name, which is temperature. And so we want to manually override this, and we want to say the temperature is 5 degrees. Press save. So now we're expecting a blue background. Yeah, sure, Abube, I'll just send the code now. Right, so that's working, and let me just send the code, an updated one. And so while I'm doing this, just manually change the temperature to, I don't know, 40 or something else, and you should expect to see a red background. Okay. So for tomorrow's lesson, if you've got any ideas of how we can make this app look cooler, just send it in the comments. There you go, Abube. Right, so we know that 5 worked because it's cold now. Let's change that now to 40 to see if it works in the hot case. Dun, dun, dun. Right, that does work. Cool. Alright, but what I don't like are the colors. So when it is cold, let's just check that again. Yeah, I'm not too fond of this color. I feel like it doesn't really look cold to me. So a very good website to find some colors is flatuicolors.com. Like that. And this gives you loads of palettes to use, and they're like very modern. So let's pick, I like that blue there. So let's go in there. Now let's go for this. Yeah, let's go for this one. So press copy. I don't know why it says green. Maybe it is green. It looks blue to me. So what I did was I just clicked on copy, and that should copy the hex code, and then you can paste that in there like that. Press save and see what happens. Yeah, that looks colder, definitely. Good. And let's just check again what the medium color was. I think medium was fine, but it might be clashing with the sun. No, I think that's fine. Yeah. And then red, I think that was also fine. Just double check. So you can play around with the colors. You can go on to flatuicolors.com and you make this app your own, customize it, and yeah, I think I'm happy with this red. But for today's homework, I really want you to make this app your own, and the ways you can do that are choose your own colors, and also choose your own loading text. Make it funny, make it cool, because I think there's too many boring apps out there. So let's make this app fun. So yeah, choose your own text, come up with a funny thing, and if you're on TikTok, just react to one of our videos and show us what you've made. You can take a screenshot and add a video, tag us, or however you want to do it. We're on Instagram as well. And what else could you change? So as you can see, we've got details here. You can change that word as well. You can call it something else, like I'm gonna call it the boring stuff, because does anyone use that information? Let's see if that worked. Yeah. And then you can change the labels: humidity, wind, visibility to so maybe someone doesn't know what humidity means. Like maybe just put in something like stuffiness, and then the wind, yeah, or visibility. Yeah, just make it your own. And don't forget, we need to remove. So it says it's not 40 degrees right now where I am. So let's remove that manual override we had. I'll give you a few seconds to do that yourselves. Remove the manual override we added. Okay, so that was down here. Okay. So tomorrow what I want to do is I want to make our loading page look more cool, a bit more funkier. And as nice and simple as this weather UI looks, I think we can do a lot better with Giphy. Let's just have a look on Giphy.com. So Giphy has an API that we could use. I'll have a look. So let's say hot weather. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I think this is going to work. So just how we changed the background color depending on whether it was cold, average, or hot. In tomorrow's lesson, and maybe we'll go into Friday as well, into day 5. Depending on whether it's cold, average, or hot, we'll display a random GIF using the Giphy API. I think that'd be cool. And then we can do something similar for the loading screen. Let's see if they've got. I think GIFs are cool. Nah, not these ones. Something to do with weather, like weather loading. Summer loading. I like that. All right. Well, yeah, we can pick the GIFs tomorrow, and they should have an API somewhere here. Let's see. So developers. And yeah, they've got an API, so we can use that. What's in the kit? Let's see. If we've got time, we'll use the API. But what we'll do tomorrow is first we'll start off with manually selecting which GIFs we want. And then we'll go on to pulling in the API to choose a random GIF every time you open the app. I think that's cool. Now, by the way, I don't know if you guys have heard of Carrot Weather. So it started off as a very simple weather app, and it was a paid app. I think it was £5. Yeah, it's £5 for this weather app. So now this looks a bit more complicated, but when it started off, it was very simple. And they went down the funny route to try and make a different kind of weather app with like nice images and some funny text. So you'll be surprised at what you can sell on the App Store. I mean, when they first started, it was a very simple app that it was funny. I think it was £5 back then as well, but it was definitely paid for, and it got thousands of downloads. So let's do something similar. By the end of day 5, you'll have a finished app on your phone. And then in my next course, we'll go through how to publish that, and also building a more fully featured app. Cool. All right, well, see you tomorrow. And again, if you've got any issues, or if you want to send me what you've done, go on to TikTok or Instagram and search 1 Month App. See you tomorrow.